After a search, police discover a cell phone in the cell of Borcaro's father. A search conducted by correctional officers discovered a cell phone in the cell of Henrique Borcaro, father of former banker Daniel Borcaro, at Nelson Gria Penitentiary in Contagem, Minas Gerais. The seizure took place during an operation at the COPS Special Penitentiary Operations Command. These people are no joke, right? This is the one who wanted to get out of jail recently, but the second panel decided he should stay in jail. Yeah, and for sure the second panel was right about keeping him in jail. And also Borcaro's father's house. Pay attention to this. Borcaro's father's house in a luxury condominium was burglarized in Minas Gerais. The house of Henrique Borcaro, father of Daniel Borcaro, former owner of Banco Master, was burglarized in the early hours of Saturday the 20th in a high-end gated community in Nova Lima in the metropolitan region of Belo Horizonte. The civil police of Minas Gerais reported that a 41-year-old man was caught in the act and arrested. Part of the stolen goods was recovered and returned. Part of the stolen goods was recovered and returned. But it's interesting if we stop to think about it, right? My grandma used to tell me, my daughter, a thief who steals from another thief gets 100 years pardon. Could that have been the case here? Or could it have been a way to hide assets? Because everything related to the Borcaro family is being blocked and seized. And suddenly a thief breaks in. Part of what he stole was recovered, but some of it wasn't. There were watches there worth 1,000,000 reais. So you can go after it and investigate. Because either it's a thief stealing from another thief, in which case, according to my grandmother, that's worth 100 years of forgiveness, or it's something arranged. You steal there to say you were robbed so we don't have to return, block, or seize everything and all that the court is after. What do you think? Coming from these people here, guys, I don't doubt anything. I even believe this is possible. Because it's a criminal organization that stole a lot of money. We're talking about billions and billions of reais. From the mafia, from Banco Master, which from all indications is connected to the Bolsonaro family itself. Since Banco Master started operating as Master thanks to the Bolsonaro government. And all the billion-dollar frauds still end up in a movie sponsorship, a secret sponsorship of more than 134 million reais. To this day, no one knows where that money went. The 134 million reais. Shall we listen to Congressman Rogerio Correa's statement here? He just spoke here, and I want to share what he said with you. Pay attention here.
More on the feud between Flavio Bolsonaro and Grandpa Vorcaro. They think we're going to forget, but you saw it, another meeting being reported. He said he didn't know Grandpa Vorcaro. Later we heard audio where he was asking Vorcaro for money. Then we saw a receipt where he was receiving money from Grandpa Vorcaro, and now Flavio Bolsonaro has gathered the group together again. We will not forget. All of this is being investigated by the police, the federal police, and this accusation will reach all Brazilians. We need to know what Bolsonaro Bolsonaro was. It's a bank created in the image and likeness of Bolsonarism. And we said this at the congressional inquiry into the INSS and proved that it existed. The money that went to Banco Master was money from pension funds, from Bolsonarist governments that diverted resources from retirees. It was also money that came from the INSS, allocated during Bolsonaro's government so that payroll loans could be made. And there were profits and more profits from dirty money, and the bank was never liquidated because the Bolsonaro government did not allow the bank to be liquidated. It was necessary for President Lula to take office, for the president of the central bank to be replaced by someone appointed by President Lula, so that from then on the bank could be liquidated, the fight against corruption could begin, and finally the entire illegal scheme that were happening could be brought to an end. Now, what remains is to punish those responsible, and the main one responsible for this is Bolsonarism. They collected a lot of bribe money that came exactly from these resources, which ended up at Banco Master. Borcaro was the lackey in all this. He was the one who operated this entire gigantic scheme of the Brazilian far right. This is the Bolsa Master. This is the accusation, let's not forget.
And so up until now, they haven't explained anything, right? Flavio Bolsonaro is silent and quiet. Lauro Jardim revealed that there was a new meeting that he met with Vorcaro, that he went to Vorcaro's house. Lauro Jardim revealed that officially Flavio Bolsonaro, Eduardo Bolsonaro, and this movie situation. Officially, they are being investigated by the federal police for money laundering, criminal organization, and illegal transfer of funds abroad. Lauro Jardim made a video talking about this. He's a journalist from Globo, and Flavio Bolsonaro is acting like nothing is happening. And to create a smokescreen, he said he's going to the United States to try to defend pigs, which they were attacking, and trying to bring down Lula's tariff push, even though they fought and worked for Trump's tariff blitz, actually for Trump's tariff against the Brazilian government. It's just creating a smokescreen to try to look good, right? And to try to shake off that label the Brazilian people have already given him, traitor to the nation. Besides that, he's going to the United States, exactly where the money meant for the movie went, and they still haven't accounted for the movie. And there will be information about this money issue in a little bit. But before that, take a look at this. Bolsonaro later, for 5 minutes, talked about the weapon seized during a police checkpoint just before his house arrest ended. Bolsonaro gave a statement to the civil police about his weapon, a 9mm Glock, which was seized from the sergeant who is part of the institutional security team for the former president of the republic. In Bolsonaro's case, he said he took it to get it fixed, blah, blah, blah. And Bolsonaro said that the weapon is really his, that he really had the weapon because he has 3 women at home. What is he afraid of, guys? He has military security personnel from the institutional office. By law, all former presidents of Brazil are entitled to this state security. In addition, he has the military police of the federal district and the agents and the penal police. And they handle all the security around his house. Exactly because he's an inmate today and he said he had a gun because he has 3 women at home. I think he's forgetting his own reality, right? So what happened? Alexandre de Moraes, so Bolsonaro's first defense then from within this environment after Bolsonaro's hearing by the civil police, who will possibly charge him with another crime of illegal possession of a firearm or possession or carrying, depending on the interpretation. Bolsonaro's defense then requested an extension of the house arrest. Did you know that Bolsonaro's house arrest ends tomorrow? Alexandre de Moraes had set 90 days of house arrest for Bolsonaro due to his health condition. No, according to his own doctors, his condition is precarious. And tomorrow, Bolsonaro's house arrest ends. And his defense has already requested an extension. So what did Alexandre de Moraes do? Alexandre de Moraes has just notified the Prosecutor General so that Paulo Gomes can express his opinion on this situation. Should Bolsonaro's house arrest be extended or should the arrests be lifted? And it's interesting that Alexandre de Moraes, I'll show you now, in this notice to the Prosecutor General asking for his opinion, Alexandre de Moraes already makes it very clear that it was a serious violation that Bolsonaro committed, the fact that he had possession of a firearm. A convicted person cannot have a firearm. Andre, that's obvious. Yeah, but in the world of Bolsonarism, isn't it? We have to repeat the obvious because they live with lies and fake news. And in the very decision that Alexandre de Moraes sent to the Prosecutor General for an opinion, who will have to respond as soon as possible, Alexandre de Moraes himself already says that this is a serious violation. Let's look at Minister Alexandre de Moraes' document so you can understand what I'm talking about. This is Minister Alexandre de Moraes' document summoning the Prosecutor General to respond. Then he says, The Civil Police of the Federal District reported that Police Inquiry 672 of 2026 was opened by the 17th Police Precinct with the purpose of investigating the reported facts. And they requested authorization and the respective summons of His Excellency Mr. Jair Messias Bolsonaro to attend the hearing to be held by video conference through the Zoom platform on June 24th and so on at 3 p.m. But it was actually in person, okay? On June 19th, I authorized the testimony in the police inquiry, which was held on the 23rd, and that is the report. I rule. So Alexandre de Moraes says in Bolsonaro's testimony, right? He admitted both the ownership of the seized firearm and having it in his residence while he was under house arrest. Humanitarian. He even stated, I had three women at home and I couldn't be unarmed. Bolsonaro speaking. Alexandra continues. According to Article 50, Section 3 of the Penal Execution Law, it is considered a serious disciplinary infraction for a person sentenced to a custodial sentence to unlawfully possess an instrument capable of harming another person's physical integrity. Then he states here the understanding that it is unnecessary to conduct an expert examination of the seized object since, after all, there is no legal requirement to determine its potential to cause harm. Then he includes the previous decisions. The Penal Execution Law provides for the consequences of recognizing the commission of a serious infraction by the convicted person, such as the revocation of authorization for external work and the interruption of the period required to obtain progression in the sentence regime. In this case, the clock on the objective eligibility requirement will restart based on the remaining sentence and the revocation of authorization for temporary leaves. These are the consequences for those who commit a serious infraction: the loss of 1/3 of the days remitted for work or study, or the restart of the counting for future releases. But especially according to Articles 58 and 118, Paragraph 1 of the Penal Execution Law, allowing inclusion in a differentiated disciplinary regime. And then either the progression in the sentence serving regime, including with the granting, including with the cessation, with the end of house arrest. Then he mentions the precedents of this type of decision previously. In respect for due process, to analyze a possible serious disciplinary infraction committed by Bolsonaro, according to the articles stated in the Penal Execution Law, it is essential to guarantee full defense and adversarial proceedings. In light of the above, I order the statement from the Office of the Prosecutor General and the defense. End of statement. The Prosecutor General has 48 hours to respond, and then Bolsonaro's defense has another 48 hours to respond. I made a point of reading this order from Minister Alexandre de Moraes because it became very clear that Alexandre de Moraes believes that Bolsonaro committed a serious disciplinary infraction, which has progression as one of its consequences. And the end, the cessation of house arrest for a return to prison, as Alexandre de Moraes himself stated in this order. Now, obviously, as I always tell you, the opinion of the Public Prosecutor's Office, the Attorney General, is very important, especially in this situation. And let's try to find out what the Attorney General's position will be, because it's unacceptable for someone who's been convicted and is serving a sentence to have a weapon. That just doesn't exist, guys. Even someone serving time under an open prison regime can't have a weapon. Someone who's free, who's wearing an ankle monitor, can't have a weapon. All those who are under court-ordered restrictions short of imprisonment cannot have a weapon. Imagine a convicted person who's under house arrest. Even then, they can't have a weapon, much less a 9mm pistol. And everyone knows that. And to me, Bolsonaro, he took the risk of having his house arrest revoked and being sent back to Papuda the moment he kept that weapon. He knows that. Everyone knows that. The institutional security agent knows that. Not really, because the institutional security agent should have seized that weapon and handed it over to the agents who are in charge of Bolsonaro's custody, which are the Federal District Military Police and the Penal Police. They should have done that, but they didn't. That's another concern I have, and that's why a police investigation was opened by the civil police of the Federal District. There will be people held accountable. Stabilizações. And for me, this order from Minister Alexandre de Moraes makes it very clear that for Minister Alexandre de Moraes, Bolsonaro has to go back to Papuda. To Papuda. And now it will depend on the Prosecutor General's office. What position will the Prosecutor General's office take? To me, it's very clear that it was also a very serious mistake by Bolsonaro. All right? Bolsonaro's defense requests an extension of house arrest. And also, Moraes asks the Prosecutor General's office to comment on Bolsonaro's house arrest. What do you think? I'm going to be very honest. For me, Bolsonaro has to go back to Papudinha. He has to go back to Papuda. And the visits only from family members, scheduled on a specific day and time, just like it is for any other inmate. Visits are only allowed for family and lawyers, period. That's it. End of story. And go back to Papudinha. That's my opinion. Oh, Andrea Gonçalves, but the Bolsonaro supporters, even Eduardo Bolsonaro himself, said that if Bolsonaro goes back to Papuda, Donald Trump will go after Alexandre de Moraes again by applying the Magnitsky Act and all that nonsense. My dear, my darling, Alexandre de Moraes doesn't care about that. Alexandre de Moraes has already put Bolsonaro in jail, with all that talk of applying the Magnitsky Act, suspended visas, and heavy tariffs, and that whole situation threatening sovereignty and everything. Do you think Alexandre de Moraes will back down now? He won't. But obviously he's waiting for the Prosecutor General's position, and it will be very important. And depending on the Prosecutor General's position, Alexandre de Moraes might back down. But if not, Alexandre de Moraes will send Bolsonaro back to Papuda. What do you think? For me, he has to go back to Papuda. That's where he belongs. He has to pay for what he did. Now, if he has serious health problems proven by medical reports from the Federal Police's medical service, then that's fine. A humanitarian house arrest is appropriate. That's human rights, that's the law, that's the Constitution. We have to respect it. Nevertheless, those same people who are now invoking human rights have always attacked human rights. And they've always supported dictators, torturers, and fascists. But now they're shielding themselves and hiding behind the very institution and the very right they've always attacked, which is human rights. But if he meets that condition, he has the right. Now, of course, if he commits a serious disciplinary infraction, he can lose that right. And let's wait to see what will happen. Representative Lindenberg Farias spoke a little while ago about this situation regarding whether or not Bolsonaro will be arrested. Let's see his statement here from Lindenberg Farias, federal representative.
I think it's fair for Jair Bolsonaro to remain under house arrest in a luxury mansion with a barbecue area, with a swimming pool, and with presidential security because he has aides inside there of a weapon. They took a weapon that an aide had taken in for maintenance. The civil police wanted to summon Jair Bolsonaro, but the escort prevented it. Well, then, this decision will be made today. It's a decision by Justice Alexandre de Moraes. I filed a petition requesting the revocation of house arrest. Do you know why, folks? Look, this group, these Bolsonaro supporters, they always say, he has to die in jail, he has to die in jail. But when it's about them, and Jair Bolsonaro's crime is a serious crime. Coup d'etat. And I want to remind you, Operation Green and Yellow Dagger. There was a plan to assassinate Lula, Alckmin, Alexandre de Moraes. I hope that today common sense prevails and he goes back to Papuda Do you think that's fair, Jair?
I'm asking you, do you think it's fair for Bolsonaro to be kept under arrest in a mansion? For me, Bolsonaro has to go back to Papuda. That's my opinion. What's your opinion? I want to know your opinion. It's very important. And I always like it when you participate by sharing your opinion. So don't leave me talking to myself. Share your opinion here. All right, it's really important. Smash the like button, like, comment, and share. Kisses. Thank you.